Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto had Omega power and become the mutant god. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1, Prologue. In an orphanage in Tokyo, a blonde-haired boy was walking around the playground silently with his book. The screams and cries of other orphans playing various games disturbed him greatly. The child was Uzumaki Naruto, an orphan from a very powerful family according to the matrons. He possessed blood-red hair and slitted purple eyes. Sharp whisker masks could be found on both of his cheeks. They made him look feral to the Japanese folk. His most frightening feature was the two horns that came out of his forehead. It was because of these features that the young boy was labeled a demon or oni. He was the odd one out. He was a scapegoat to the older orphans who abhorred his intelligence. The young 7-year-old sighed as he read his book. He didn't have any friends, and any that he got close to would be swayed away from him by the matrons. The girls made nasty rumors about him, and the boys physically abused him, stating that a demon would never be as strong as a human. He gritted his teeth in anger as he thought, I'll show them all what a true demon could do. He learned that there was social hierarchy in the orphanage. One kid would be the top of the chain and all the others would obey him. Ironic that it was the same kind of hierarchy that was used by the Japanese government. He walked towards the bench reading his book on evolution written by Charles Darwin. As he made his way to the bench, he was hugged to the ground by a 13-year-old boy named Kenji. Kenji sneered, "What you reading there, demon?" Naruto got up and said, "You could have walked around me, I wasn't in your way, we are outside, you know. Look how much space you have." He gestured to the massive amount of open ground around them. Kenji punched Naruto to the ground. "Shut up, demon, you don't have the right to even breathe the same air as us." Naruto gritted his teeth as he felt a stinging sensation on his cheek. His eyes flashed red as he muttered, "One day I will kill you and everyone in this orphanage." He hadn't realized that he had already attracted a large group of teenagers that were playing ball with each other. He heard one of the kids say, "You hear that he said he was going to kill us? How about we show him how weak he is?" They cracked their knuckles getting ready to hit Naruto. Naruto closed his eyes getting ready for the beating. He felt someone grab him and throw him a few meters into the arms of another teenager. The other teenager grabbed Naruto's arm and held them into place as the others lined up and began punching him over and over again. Ribs cracked, blood pouring from his bent nose and mouth. His eyes blurred, but they were snapped wide open when a knife pierced his right lung. All the boys gasped when Naruto fell to the ground couching blood. Dark spots entered his peripheral vision before he lost consciousness. His last thought being, "This is it. No, young one, it is only the beginning." A dark voice ripped through his subconscious and into his conscious mind. Naruto thought he was going crazy, but he had little time to dwell on it as his mind went black. Naruto rose from the ground as if he was a zombie. The boys backed away in fear when they saw his eyes. Red ringed eyes with 9 tomos spread unevenly across the rings. A dark grin was present on Naruto. "I think it's time you answered for your crimes." Kenji asked, "What are you?" "I am death incarnate." Those were the only words that came from the possessed Naruto. A black fire spread from Naruto's legs and spread towards the boys, incinerating them upon contact. The flames wildly burned everything. The screams of the matrons and the inhabitants of the orphanage were melodious to the being. A bloodthirsty grin marred the being's mouth before he vanished from Naruto's mind, causing the body to crumble to the ground. Smoke covered the entire neighborhood and the black flames spread like wildfire. 1 hour later, Naruto rose from the ground, his vision impaired by the heavy amount of smoke that permeated the air around. He looked down and saw the knife on the ground. His wound healed like it was nothing. Memories of the event entered his mind and he gasped in shock. "I did this. I killed everyone, but how?" He wasn't allowed to ponder. The screams of the police and the fire brigade made him quickly flee the scene. After emerging from the smoke-filled neighborhood, he gasped once again. Fire raged through streets of Tokyo. He was shocked. He killed innocent people and yet he didn't feel the smallest bit of guiltiness. He felt an odd sense of liberation. Like he was finally free. It was quite odd. His ashen body made its way towards Tokyo. He knew that from henceforth it would be harder than it had ever been for him. Oh boy, was he right. 3 months later, Naruto sighed as he walked through the empty streets of Tokyo. He had been living on the streets for over 3 months now. He found many things about himself during his time on the streets. He felt no hunger regardless of whether he ate or not, and that wasn't even the tip of the iceberg of what he found he could do. He was fast, very fast, as in supersonic. It was during an incident with thugs that his supersonic speed kicked in. His body was throwing out powers as if he were a generator. He was strong enough to punch a thug through a building regardless of his weak physique. He had the body of a superhuman. All of the physical abilities that a human possessed were increased to the point that it shocked even the Yakuza who were trying to hunt him down. After trying to recreate the black flames, he realized that they would only appear when he was angry. When he was calm they were orange, and so he deduced that the intensity and color of the flames changed according to his emotional state. He quickly learned that he could control all of the elements: water, fire, lightning, earth and wind. Each of them appeared during different times. Water came out of his hands when a fire erupted in a hotel. Naruto saved a child and a mother that day. Earth manipulation manifested when he was running from a group of thugs that he had stolen money from, and lightning was attracted to him when a storm rolled over Tokyo. The streets were harsh. He had come across a gang of Yakuza who tried to kidnap him, and if it weren't for his powers he would have surely been kidnapped. Currently, Naruto walked through another alley as he made his way into one of his many sleeping areas. He now stayed in an abandoned warehouse. His eyes narrowed at the open warehouse that he knew he left closed. Naruto silently moved through the warehouse that was literally empty. His acute senses heard the faintest sound of running around. He shouted bravely, "I know you're there. There's no point in hiding, come out." A group of masked ninja jumped into the open area. The lights of the warehouse suddenly flickered on. They had various weapons on them ranging from bows to katanas. The leader, who was wearing some black outfit that differed from the red attire the rest, stepped forward. He clapped. He announced, "It's a surprise that a young boy like you found our abandoned warehouse. Did you also fix the electricity in this place?" Naruto nodded. He took a small step back. "You're the hand, aren't you? I have heard rumors about your organization." The leader said, "I commend you on your ability to fix the entire electrical system in this warehouse, but I am afraid to say that you came here at the wrong time. You must die." With those words the group of ninjas unsheathed their weapons and began to advance on him. Naruto sighed, Fine. Let's get this over with." The leader raised an eyebrow at the careless tone, but he got his answer when fire spread from Naruto's body. Naruto's eyes glowed orange as flames began to spread around him in a protective circle. Rose rained down on him, but they were burned to ashes with the smallest gesture of his hand. The leader said, Well, a mutant. I never thought I would see one here in Japan, but if you think you're the only one, you're sorely mistaken." A shadow grew around on of the ninja that walked past the leader. Naruto jumped back as a shadow solidified and nearly stabbed him. He ran to one of the electrical pipes and drew a massive amount of electricity from them. His eyes turned blue and sparked before he vanished. He appeared in the middle of the group and released the electricity. He muttered, "Metal conducts electricity." He. A maniacal giggle escaped his mouth as branches of electricity rolled through every person in the room. The ones closest to him were fried alive and the others were simply knocked back unconscious. The leader jumped in the air, directing the electricity away by throwing a dagger just in front of him, and the other mutant entered the shadows. Once the leader landed, he raised his hands in surrender. "I believe we have much to talk about, young one." Naruto asked, confused. "Much to talk about? You killed my men without the care for them in the world. You would be a worthy addition to our organization. We can provide you with food, a shelter, and we won't be discriminate about your unique physical features." Naruto contemplated the offer before deciding to accept. "I accept." The leader grinned inside his mask. "Great. My name is Kagami. What is your name, young one?" Quote, Uzumaki Naruto. Kagami took a step back in complete fear. "Uzumaki. Impossible. They were killed. I suppose he does posses their bloody red hair." He recovered and said quickly, "Nice name. Let's get going, Naruto. Cage hide the dead bodies and take the injured to the med bay." Quote, First lesson of the day. Can you go through Tokyo like shadow? He seemingly disappeared, but Naruto kept track of his inhuman speed and the two traveled to the hand headquarters. 1 month later, two swords clashed with each other. Naruto dodged a strike from behind. The room was filled with 20 hand soldiers. Naruto had to kill them in order to join the organization. He had endured a very hard 1 month filled with training. Naruto spun and cleaved Ninja's head off with his katana. He grabbed the man's curved sword and threw it with immense strength at a ninja. It pierced his chest and erupted through his back before stabbing into the other ninja behind him. Both dropped dead. Naruto's eyes glowed orange. Fire spread across the sword. He was forced to dodge an arrow from behind but was then stabbed in the leg by a spear. Naruto threw his sword at the man with the spear. Fire erupted from the man's chest and covered him. Naruto snapped his fingers and the fire disappeared. He ripped the sword from his leg and watched it heal. A feral grin appeared on his mouth and he went on a killing spree. Heads rolled, bodies burnt and electrocuted. The leaders of the hand were impressed and began to discuss what missions to give to the young assassin. A week later, Naruto and Kagami were on the roof of a building in Tokyo. Kagami said, "Naruto, it's all on you from now on. Your first mission is to kill a woman who is a part of the Yakuza. Her name is on your phone as well as her address. I will leave everything to you know." He looked at Naruto who was dressed in a black outfit, simply Becca. He despised red and the higher-ups allowed him to. He ran down the building at Mach 2 and towards his target that lived in a mansion on the outskirts of Tokyo. He reached the massive mansion. He jumped over the gate and ran to the back gate. Picking the lock, he slowly opened the door. His acute senses assaulted with the smell of alcohol and the screams of a man. Naruto stalked his way to where the screams were coming from. He saw they were in the living room. The woman was into some sort of bondage. The man was dressed in latex and was at the woman's foot who was whipping him. Naruto narrowed his eyes. His hand crept to the dagger in his pouch. He threw it with expert precision except she caught it. She licked her lips as she looked at the crouching Naruto. Well, the hand finally sent someone to kill me. You'll be an interesting addition to me collection. She sat on the golden chair, her body very lean and her hair as black as the night. She kicked the man in the face, knocking him out before she stood up. A pistol in her hand and a sword in the left. "So are we going to fight?" The young child answered, "Not really." His hands were lit on fire. Her eyes widened and she said, "Of course they would send a mutant to kill me. I was wondering whether they had offended me by sending a child." She said, "Well, it's your lucky day, kid. We can compare powers." Ice spread from her body and turned the air around her into a dense mist. Naruto groaned as he released a wave of fire and she countered with a wave of ice. He turned to attack her with electricity but she countered by throwing the man on the floor in the way of the incoming arc of electricity. He died. She fired bullets but Naruto dodged them effortlessly. She sighed and began running to the exit only for Naruto to create a wall of earth. She groaned again and she swung her sword to block Naruto's incoming wave of earth projectiles. Naruto sped towards her but she slowed him down with blasts of ice, his body slowing down as she neared absolute zero. He knew he had to change tactics and so he decided to take another approach. He made the earth wall behind her release projectiles. She dodged 3 but was stabbed through the stomach by the 4th. She gasped and saw the emotionless gaze of Naruto. A chuckle emanating from her mouth. "It seems we're not so different after all. What's your name?" "Uzumaki Naruto." He saw no harm in telling a dead woman his name. "I'm sure you know my name. There is a vault in the basement that contains gold and a large sum of money. I don't have an heir and I have never came across someone that could ever be worthy of my family's fortune. Take the vault and hide it. I will give you one small warning. The hand are only using you and when you become too powerful, they will kill you. That's how the hand work, young one." Globs of blood erupted from her mouth before she collapsed on the floor dead. Naruto, for the sake of honoring his opponent, did as she asked and took the contents of the vault and hid it in a warehouse that was known only to him and Kagami. His first contract was a success. He didn't even dwell on her death. The kitsune had been born. 1 year later, Naruto sat in an underground laboratory that he created. Rapid typing was the only sound that could be heard in the empty warehouse. The floor filled with books ranging from simple subjects like history to the most esoteric subjects like quantum physics. The room was akin to a medium-sized hall. Boards were attached to the walls and they were currently filled with mathematical equations and models. Naruto sat behind 3 computer screens and his hands were moving at hypersonic speeds. It would take people years to write the programs he was writing, hundreds of scripts being written minute after minute. His mind was in a state of complete focus and he had been typing for the last few days. The clicking of heels made Naruto snap out of his self-made trance. He spun the chair in time to see a beautiful teenager walk into the room. She had black hair and fiery red eyes. She was currently dressed in civilian clothes except Naruto could tell she had her trademark daggers. She spoke in her usual cold tone, "Naruto-kun. We have a mission. Who are we going to kill?" A tech mogul. He apparently got arrogant and disrespected the Hand's allies. He has to be eliminated. I was going to go alone but I thought you might want some souvenirs. Naruto stood up. The girl eyed the very pale boy. He always stayed indoor in his lab and hardly went out for anything apart for food. No one really cared as Naruto never failed a mission. Naruto grabbed a pistol from the table and a backpack that was filled with explosives and a few sneaky inventions. He pressed a few buttons on his compet and walked out of the warehouse with his partner. Naruto asked, "Akame, where is the target?" "He is in the Arashi Technologies building." Naruto nodded and pulled up his hood. He said, "I'll meet you there." Akame nodded before she jumped on her motorbike and roared towards Tokyo. Naruto vanished in a burst speed. He had to make a quick stop to get some circuitry. 40 minutes later, Naruto walked through the halls looking surprised. Dead bodies everywhere. They had 3 puncture marks or 3 slashes present on their bodies. Naruto looked at Akame and said, "Someone's here. Find him, her. I'll kill the target." She nodded and she disappeared like an expert assassin, following the trail of dead bodies. Naruto walked up the stairs, his hearing allowing him to locate the target. He too vanished in a burst of speed. Naruto arrived in front of the last room that was located in the uppermost floor. He punched the door into splinters. He found the target Arashi being chalked by a girl with extended claws. Naruto sped towards her and uppercutted her into the ceiling. As she was falling he took out his pistol and fired 7 rounds into her chest. She hit the ground unconscious. Naruto could hear her heart beat. Arashi was a relatively chubby man. The guy was a genius by all accounts. He had invented cybernetic limbs that worked exactly like a human's. His technology was light years beyond that of most companies with the exception of Stark Industry. Naruto sighed as he raised his gun with the usual emotionless face that was presented to his victims. Arashi pleaded, "Don't kill me." Naruto muttered in Latin, "Requiescat in pace, rest in peace." A single bullet fired from the gun and pierced the man's skull. Naruto walked out of the room giving the unconscious woman one last GLA NCE before he closed the door and headed to Akame's location. He heard a piercing scream that made him run towards her location at hypersonic speeds. Naruto punched a short muscular guy who had 3 metal claws protruding from both hands a few meters back. He turned to see Akame had her leg pierced and 3 deep gashes in her abdomen. Naruto threw his bag at the man who was charging at him before firing a single bullet. Naruto grabbed Akame and ran out of the room before the bullet hit the bag. A massive explosion resounded from the middle floor causing a part of the building to collapse. He hoped he wouldn't see the man again. Once he brought Akame to his hideout. He quickly prepped her for surgery. It was a good thing that she had given a bank of her blood. Thank God he decided to teach himself medicine a few days ago. A few days later, Naruto was running through a forest, a blooded katana in his hand. He was being chased by someone group that called themselves Team X. Apparently, word of his assassinations had reached America and Canada and this team was here to kill him. Naruto grabbed a small cylindrical object and threw it behind him. A grin plastered on his face as he heard a massive explosion rock the forest. He had killed 2 members of Team X. Naruto sped through Tokyo towards Kagame's penthouse. He required some assistance. He skidded into Kagame's room and saw a sight to behold. His master was fighting a woman, both actually trying to kill each other. The woman was a brunette with tanned skin. She was wearing a red latex suit with a red mask that covered her lower arm, two sais in her fingers. His speed created a burst of air that caused the both of them to turn around. Naruto asked, "Want a hand?" Kagami shrugged. The woman watched curiously as Naruto NDS lit a flame and he was about to direct a powerful stream of fire when she raised her arms and said, "Okay, okay. You win, Kagami-kun. You don't need to have your protege burn me. You must Kitsune or Oni." She stared at the horned masked boy in front of her. Naruto said, "Leave. I have to talk with my master about private affairs." Kagami calmly replied, "She stays, Kitsune. She's an ally." Quote, "There's a group of mutants hunting me. They have a few semi-immortal beings in their team. They won't die even if I blow them up. They are known as Team X and I need you to tell the higher-ups that they will eventually come for the hand headquarters." The woman spoke in a foreign accent. Team X. They are known to be working for the American and Canadian government. What are they doing here? Kagami shrugged but turned to Naruto. He said seriously, "I want you to deal with them." Naruto nodded but was stopped from leaving when Kagami spoke. "She's going with you." Electra, do you have a problem with this? Naruto sighed. She doesn't even have super speed. Kagami rebutted. Neither does Akame-chan and you to work very well together. Come on lady, let's go. Naruto said. He grabbed her before she could even react and sped the both of them away towards his hideout. Electra felt dizzy after the ride and almost banged her head on Naruto's table but she quickly regained balance. She looked around and was surprised to see hundreds of mathematical equations filled the boards on the wall. She thought, is he some sort of genius? Naruto however walked up to the computer and began scanning the CCTV activity to find Team X. He eventually found them and tracked their activity to a suite in central Tokyo. Naruto said, "Found them. They are staying in a 5-star hotel in central Tokyo. I am going to get the blueprints and use the CCTV activity to figure out which room belongs to each of the group members." Electra walked up to her partner and saw how fast he was typing and she could only see flickers across the screen. She thought, he is using his superspeed to go through the video at an accelerated rate. That's ingenious way of doing things faster. She said, "You know we don't have to fight them now." Naruto turned. "Yes we do. They are going to continue the hunt tomorrow. It's best to strike when they are asleep so it will be a surprise." Electra sighed. "Two of the members won't die, no matter how you hurt them. One of them is a shapeshifter and another is a teleporter so you won't be able to catch him." Naruto replied, "Thanks for the info but I can still take them. I am going to throw the ones with advanced regeneration into the ocean whilst killing the others." Fine. What's the plan? Naruto commanded. "You take the shapeshifter. I will take care of the teleporter and the other immortals. I'm coming with you." Akame's voice ran through the hall. Electra turned to see the black-haired girl. She looked very healthy for one who had sustained a very deep wound. "I'm all healed." Naruto sighed. "Gear up, Akame." He walked up to a cabinet and drew out a sniper before throwing it to the girl. She grabbed and said, "I suppose I am going to be support." Naruto shook his head. "You're going to take out the teleporter. His room is in line with the balcony of the opposite hotel." He gave her a room number and the blueprints. "Let's move out." Half an hour later, Naruto and Electra had entered the building. Akame on the balcony was trying to see her target but had yet to see a glimpse of him. She moved her scope to the next room where she discovered a problem. The shapeshifter was kissing another one of the members. He was known to the world as none other than Sabretooth. Naruto's voice went through the wire. "Focus on your target, we'll deal with them. Do it silently. The rooms are next to each other." "Oh, I will, all right." Electra's voice drawled through the earpiece making Akame sigh. She saw her target walk towards the window and she took the shot. The silencer made it impossible to hear the noise and the bullet pierced the man's heart with expert precision. "Target is down." "Well down, Akame-chan. If you want, go find the other mutant. I'm sure you want to repay him for the wounds he gave you." A bloodthirsty grin marred her face and she looked at the sword on her belt. "Of course. I didn't bring my cursed blade for no reason, you know. I'll come as soon as possible but I want to first kill these two, so you're going to be on your own for a while. Run if you begin to lose." Quote, "Roger that." Akame disappeared like any other shadow in the night. Inside Mystique's room, The couple were kissing when Sabretooth heard a piercing noise from the room next door. His impeccable hearing allowed him to hear his comrade go down and he automatically jumped from Mystique and walked towards the door. Mystique was worried and was right to be so, the second that her lover opened the door. He was punched out of the window and straight through the other building. Her worst fear was confirmed when the black attire of the kitsune. The robe with the black armor underneath and the metallic mask with horns, it was definitely the clothing of the infamous Oni group of the Hand. A group of clustered individuals that the leaders of the Hand proclaimed were their best warriors. Every mercenary in the world knew of the group that basically never worked together, but when they did it was as if hell itself manifested around them. Kitsune's voice rang through the room, knock, knock. Electricity crackled through the room as he fired a jet of electricity towards her, except she disappeared before it could hit. Was it teleportation? He had no idea, but he knew that he had miscounted the amount of people in Team X right then. Kitsune Gr. owned but decided to go find Akame, leaving Elektra there alone. Speeding to Akame's location, he could hear the clanging of steel. He came in time to see that Wolverine also disappear, but this time mysterious teleporter left something behind. A bomb, and it exploded straight away. Naruto wasn't fast enough to escape the blast radius with Akame, and so he grabbed her and held her underneath him as if to shield any impact from her, but he noticed that her sides were wet. Looking at his hands he saw blood. It seemed that she had been stabbed in her kidneys and liver. Naruto looked at the girl beneath him and saw her smile as if she knew what he was going to say. The blast had stopped him from hearing what she said, but her lip movements were etched into his mind. I'm sorry. Those were the words that came from his partner's lips, and Akame's eyes closed before the soot and debris covered his vision. A few years later, a hooded figure jumped from rooftop to rooftop as he made his way to the Japanese Hand headquarters in Tokyo. The figure in question wore black samurai armor. A metallic mask covered his face. The mask was made of pure adamantium and was mixture of an Oni and Kitsune mask. He had 2 katana on his waist and a belt filled with kunais. Once he reached the headquarters, the guards bowed to him and he saw that his sensei Kagami was standing next to the leader of the Japanese branch, Matsuo Sarayaba. Naruto bowed his head at his master before going on his knees for the faction leader. Matsuo spoke with his very deep voice. Rise, Naruto, for 4 years you have served the Hand well and even became our best assassin at just the age of 14. Perhaps your power gave you an unfair advantage, but I have never seen anyone with such commitment to their training like you. Todd, you will reach the same grade as your master Kagami, but to pass you must fight him to the death. The leader smirked at Naruto's shocked look. Choose Uzumaki, Kagami's life or yours. The reason he was doing this was simple. In legend it was stated that Uzumaki's unlocked their full power when someone close to them died, and he was dying to see how powerful Naruto could get. Naruto's eyes started to water as he looked at the man he had seen as his father. He heard, "Kid, I am so sorry, but I wish to remain alive, so you must die." Kagami knew that he would die already. Naruto was on a class of his own, and even if the kid was only 14 years old, he had mastered over 24 martial arts styles. He unsheathed his blade as a single tear dropped from his eyes and charged at Naruto using super speed, which shocked his protege. Matsuo said, "Kagami's body has been enhanced by magic to fight on par with you, so it would be fair." Naruto dodged the downward slash and unsheathed his blade, reacting to the next strike. A flurry of attacks followed as Naruto was kept on the defensive. Naruto stabbed his sword into the ground as he fired a massive electrical wave through it and into the ground, shocking Kagami. Before he could avoid, Naruto smashed Kagami in the face with his fist, causing him to fall to the ground in pain, but Kagami got up in a few seconds, charging at Naruto, who dodged and dodged the sharp swings of Kagami's blade. Kagami caught Naruto off guard, and just as he was about to stab the boy in the chest, Naruto sidestepped and summoned the blade using his hand as a magnet. The blade pierced Kagami's abdomen, causing him to fall to the ground. Naruto cried, "Why did you make me do it?" "Shush, don't cry, kid. I am so happy for everything we did together. You were the son I never had, and I wasn't lying when I said that you meant everything to me. I am sorry, it had to be this way, and I am sorry I can't see you become a proper assassin. Take care of yourself and Naruto." The Life died from Kagami's eyes as he finally let death consume him. He died a happy man, proud that he at least accomplished something other than killing for money. Naruto screamed, "No, no, please don't leave me. No." His body started to glow an ethereal blue color. A power so powerful started irradiating from him that everyone fell to the ground from the immense pressure that Naruto was releasing. He growled, "Is this what you wanted, leader?" He raised a hand, causing Matsuo to go in the air. His powers had increased to the point where he felt as if he was going to explode, and explode he did. A massive energy dome covered the entire area as Naruto's energy body seemingly disappeared. Once the dome was finished and unconscious Naruto fell to the ground, everything had been disintegrated. However, unknown to him, Matsuo escaped with his most powerful generals before the blast could kill him. Everyone else was dead. Charles Xavier sat in his wheelchair, his mind hooked up to Cerebro as he probed Ed for mutants that could join the Xavier Institute. He had gotten Jean and Scott 2 years ago and they were progressing very well. However, suddenly a massive psionic spike smashed into his mind. He could feel the anguish, the pain and the sorrow of the person who had sent the wave. The fact remained that this person was extremely strong and perhaps even more powerful than Jean right now in terms of raw power. The psionic spike originated in Japan, Tokyo. He telepathically told Strong to prep the X-Jet for a long journey to Japan, and when she asked why, he simply replied that he found another student in need of his help. 3 hours and a bit. Naruto sat in the middle of the charred crater crying to himself. He didn't know what to do anymore. He lost a loved one, his most precious person, and that person was slayed by his own blade. He was truly a demon, a monster. The air below him blew away as a sleek black jet landed beside the crater. The ramp descended and a group of 2 people exited the plane. The first was a bald-headed man in a wheelchair, and a beautiful African lady followed him. She had white hair and electric blue eyes. He swore some uniform that had an X pattern on it. Charles Xavier surveyed the damage. He could detect the excess psionic energy all around him, but it was different from the one that he and Jean had. It seemed more potent and more explosive. He asked Oro to lead him into the crater where the young teen sat in. She followed Charles' request even though she was scared that this young man's powers were extremely strong. Charles said in Japanese, "What is your name?" Naruto looked at the man and used his negative emotion sensing to try and see whether he held any bad feelings for him. "Uzumaki Naruto. What's yours and what do you want from me?" The man replied smoothly, "Charles Xavier. I am here to help you." "Help me with what?" Naruto asked as he slowly sat up, blue energy wrapped around his body ready to attack. Charles raised a hand. "I am a professor at an institute in America that helps mutants that need help controlling their powers. I am here to offer you a place at my institute." Naruto replied, trying to make the guy leave. "Really? I am an assassin, you know. I don't think you particularly want me corrupting the other children to become lawbreakers." Charles sighed. "I assure you, we don't discriminate. I have helped mutants that have been killing machines for many years." Naruto thought, "I should probably accept, but first I have to make sure that I do a few things." He answered, "Fine, I suppose I can go with you. I don't have anywhere to go and hand agents will swarm this place in a matter of minutes." Charles said quizzically, "The hand. I'll tell you later, but first let's get out of here and wherever your institute is." Naruto told Charles, making the bald-headed professor to believe that it was urgent and if they stayed here any longer they would die. The group headed back into the jet and raced off seconds before hundreds of hand agents swarmed the crater looking for Naruto. Naruto looked outside the windshield and thought, perhaps this isn't going to be bad, plus I always wanted to go to America. Single quote. He asked, "Do you think we could make a quick stop to my hideout? I have a few things I need to do." Quote. Storm asked, "Where is this hideout of yours?" Naruto walked up to the front seat and said, "Let me drive. I know how to pilot a plane." Storm slid out of the driver's seat and Naruto grabbed the wheel. He flew off towards his hideout with a small smile across his face. Perhaps it was time to begin another chapter in his life. One that didn't involve killing. A new life, and him being Uzumaki Naruto naturally meant that it would be awesome. Unfortunately, the young Uzumaki didn't know that his demons would follow him even to America. He had yet to fight the demons that festered in his dreams, and the very enemies he had made during his time as an assassin were planning his very demise. The young assassin seemed to forget that the past would always come back to haunt you. A person could only run so far before his demons caught up to him. I am sorry I haven't updated, but here is the first chapter of my rewrite. As promised, there won't be that many changes except more description and a little bit less exaggeration. I have chosen to keep Naruto as his usual dark and emotionless self. It works better if Naruto didn't automatically fit in. Also, Naruto will be a freelancer for the majority of the story. His missions will be shown every few chapters, but the majority of his work will only be mentioned. Anyway, I am thinking of reducing the harem from its abnormal size to a much more manageable one. It will only be around 5 girls. I have chosen Emma Frost and Jean Grey as the first 2. But the other 3 are still up for grabs, so please leave a comment on which girls you think I should pair up with Naruto. Next chapter will be before X-Men Evolution begins, so it will be a filler chapter introducing him to Jean and Scott. I intend to keep Naruto as much of an antihero as possible. I don't really want to make him a villain, but he will do acts that may be seen by many readers as unethical, and no, it won't be anything like rape. Hope you enjoyed the chapter and tell me what you think in the reviews. Rado out. Next chapter will be released in a week or so. Chapter 2. Chapter 2. Introductions. This is your room, Naruto. The group arrived the next day, early afternoon. The professor spent the entire trip getting familiar with the boy. He had found that Naruto was an only deprived teenager who never really had an attachment, bar the man known as Kagami. Naruto had only a few people that he would consider friends, but in his line of work, friends were a hindrance to the mission. Xavier quickly found out that Uzumaki Naruto was a very powerful mutant, more powerful than he could have ever imagined. The boy was not only a very powerful psionic, he also possessed a vast array of powers that he had never seen in a single mutant. Naruto was also capable of blocking his telepathy. It was an interesting discovery, but that meant he couldn't keep tabs on the boy's activities. Thank you very much, Naruto replied. The professor said, I am sure you're very tired. I'll let you get some rest before you meet the others. Naruto nodded. He grabbed his 3 suitcases and walked into his room. Closing the door, the professor turned to Storm and asked, what do you think about Naruto? Storm sighed. He seems a lot like Logan when he first came to you, but unlike Logan, he isn't suffering from amnesia. I just hope he can move on from his past. Naruto quickly zoned out the rest of the conversation. He didn't need anyone's pity, nor did he care about anyone in this mansion. He just needed to disappear. He opened up his suitcase. He placed the $100,000 on his bed and a few passports. He had only managed to get a few of his weapons. It was lucky that all of his work was saved on his laptop because he had to torch the hideout. The Hand would have eventually found it, and it would be very bad news if they got their hands on his work. He had blueprints for weapons that could. Naruto got out of his armor and took a seat on the bed, his laptop on his lap. He knew he had a lot of work to do, including as much research as possible about New York City. Hours later, a soft knock made Naruto jump out of his concentrated trance. He had conducted hours worth of research about New York and America in general. Naruto said, the door's open. Storm walked into the room and raised her eyebrow at the state of what had been a clean room. His armor was all over the floor. A pistol was on the floor with what looked a packet of daggers. Her eyebrows twitched. Naruto, what did the professor tell you about keeping weapons? Naruto shrugged. I don't see the harm of keeping a pistol in my room. People carry pistols all the time in America, and my throwing knives were custom made. Storm thundered at him. I don't care if they were made by God himself, you will get rid of your daggers. No. Storm almost fell to the ground at his blunt reply. She sighed. Fine, fine. The professor sent me to get you for dinner. Naruto looked at the time and found out that he had spent way too much time surfing the web than he should have. I will be right down. Storm nodded, leaving the young mutant alone to get dressed. Naruto sighed as he got into his urban clothes set. He somehow knew that his experience at the mansion would be way too troublesome. Naruto quickly threw on some casual clothes. A plain black t-shirt and blue jeans. He slowly made his way downstairs, not worried one bit about meeting another mutant. As he walked into the dining room, he was greeted by two young teenagers. One boy and one girl. He approximated that they were around 14 years old. The boy was a Caucasian of average build for a teenager his age. He had brown hair and wore red sunglasses. Weight sunglasses indoors. Single quote. The girl was a redhead, but unlike his bloody red hair, her hair was more orange than crimson. Her piercing green eyes watched him very carefully. She possessed very delicate features and an athletic build which told Naruto that she enjoyed sports. With the preliminary observations finished, Naruto continued to make his way towards an empty seat on the table. Professor Xavier raised his eyes from his book when he heard Naruto take a seat. "So you came, Naruto. I was just about to think that you didn't want any dinner." Naruto shrugged, his face mirroring that of a bored individual. "I don't need food anyway. My body survives of ambient energy that is present everywhere in this universe." Professor Xavier filed the information away for later. He continued to introduce Naruto to the two other occupants of the room. "Jean, Scott, this is Uzumaki Naruto. He is going to be the newest addition to the academy. He will also be enrolled into year." Jean smiled softly. "Hi, I am Jean Grey. Nice to meet you, Naruto." She looked over her fellow student with a careful eye. Naruto was very muscular for a teenager and he was extremely tall for their age. He possessed red hair that was comparable to blood and sharp horns extruding from his forehead. Naruto replied smoothly, "A pleasure to meet you too." Jean asked, "What are your powers?" Retaining his bored tone, Naruto spoke cryptically, "I have many." Jean was annoyed with his response but was satisfied that he didn't ask the same question in return. Scott intruded. "The professor says you're the strongest mutant he has ever met. You don't look so tough." Jean sighed and Naruto looked upon the boy with a lazy eye. An arrogant tone. I do hope that there is some substance in the words he speaks." Naruto spoke, "Telling from your body expression, I can see that you enjoy using the tough guy act. Perhaps a defense mechanism to deflect your own insecurities that your powers are inferior when compared to mine." Scott automatically placed his hand on his glasses. Naruto smirked, "So your powers are ocular-based, huh? You wear those glasses to prevent you releasing any of your beams." The structures of those glasses are quartz. I would say that you possess concussive beams." The professor remained in awe at Naruto's quick analysis. It was also very accurate. Jean muttered, Naruto was some sort of genius, and Scott looked as if he were fuming, if the frown was anything to go by. Storm walked in with the food and placed on the table. Taking a seat herself, the group of five began to dig into their dinner. Next day, it was a Saturday, which meant that it was training day. Scott and Jean were both training in a room that Naruto learnt was called the Danger Room. He was not allowed into the room because the professor wanted to see how powerful he was. The professor asked Jean and Scott to come to the control room. Storm then guided Naruto into the room. He wore his armor and his creepy Oni mask. Jean and Scott both looked scared. Naruto looked very dangerous, especially because of the dagger strapped to his belt. The professor said, "Naruto, I am going to begin the simulation soon. The objective is to get a small orb. You cannot get tagged or hit. You are also not allowed to use your super speed." Naruto nodded slowly. Xavier pressed a button and an orb slowly came out of the floor. The orb was being held in the far corner of the room. The professor said, "You may begin." Naruto quickly backflipped as an energy beam came from his blind spot. He grabbed a pair of daggers. Two energy guns appeared and started firing beams rapidly. He stomped on the ground and a massive wall of earth covered him. A slow mist began to cover the room and Naruto heard Storm's voice, "Don't forget about me, Naruto." A small grunt came from Naruto as he was forced to dodge Storm's lightning bolts and energy beams heading his way. Without his super speed, Naruto was left with his elemental power set and super strength. Burning white fire erupted from the wall. Storm had to fly higher as her mist was cleared with a massive burst of wind that made the white fire increase in intensity. Storm frowned. Was Naruto actually trying to kill her? Her assumption was correct as she was forced to dodge two of his daggers. The professor, however, had other plans for the young assassin. Naruto was entrapped in a steel cube. Naruto sighed as he punched on the sides open. Grabbing the rest of the cube, he threw it at Storm, who blew it away with a gust of wind. She was unprepared. Hen Naruto hurled a stone boulder at her. Storm was hit with the boulder and she fell to the ground. He used some wind to cushion her fall. The professor gave him a nod of gratitude. Storm groaned but was out of the fight. Naruto ran towards the orb, dodging and weaving through a multitude of traps. With one final leap, Naruto was about to grab the orb when a small energy cannon appeared in front of him. He was forced to use his super speed to dodge the point-blank shot. Naruto stared at the professor, who smirked and said, "It seems you lose, Naruto." Naruto shrugged. A burst of fire erupted from his feet, burning the metal podium that held the orb and the accursed energy cannon. Storm, who had since recovered, was surprised at Naruto's control of fire. He could raise the temperature of his fire very quickly. Scott and Jean were surprised. Both of them had failed this test, but Naruto had seemingly finished it. The professor had purposefully placed that trap there, knowing that it would be fizzy. Cali impossible for Naruto to dodge it without his super speed. Scott muttered, "I take back everything I said. I feel sorry for the poor soul that has to fight Naruto." Jean nodded, but something within her had been awakened. A burning fire that was consuming her mind. An itch and a small thought that urged her to fight the young assassin. Naruto twirled his dagger and asked the professor, "One more simulation, Professor?" Xavier smiled. "Very well. You will be fighting Jean, Scott and Storm this time. No daggers though, your aim is deadly." Quote. Naruto smirked in his mask. "I'll take that as a compliment." Scott and Jean looked anxious, seeing Naruto looking ready for a good fight. A ring of fire surrounded him, which then turned to ice. He snapped his finger as the ice turned into jagged daggers, throwing them at the nearest wall. The professor frowned. Naruto's elemental control was extraordinary. He possessed flawless control over each of his elements. The elements' shape, form and state were all being controlled by the most dangerous assassin on the planet. A question came to his mind. How powerful are you, Naruto? The truth was, at the end of the session, Jean and Scott were thoroughly beaten. Storm had survived the longest, but Naruto overpowered her physically and she was quickly knocked out. He was capable of withstanding high-pressure winds and her lightning bolts. Naruto, aren't that Jean was telekinetic, but she didn't possess good control over said power, and Naruto easily knocked her out with a quick electric shock. Scott was the most annoying to beat. His ocular powers were powerful and they did hurt Naruto. Not by much, but the beam was strong enough to knock Naruto back a few meters. With a burst of speed, Naruto managed to dispatch Scott first. Throughout the day, Naruto would go through several tests and the professor would slowly log his powers. They had not been able to access his energy form that the professor had witnessed yesterday, and it was clearly vexing Naruto. The professor was admittedly impressed at both Naruto's intellect and mutant powers. He would be hard-pressed to find a better ally against Magneto. It was now nightfall and everyone had gone to sleep with exception of Naruto. Naruto had instead decided to go to New York City. 12 a.m. Naruto walked through the very empty streets of New York. People were still around, but it was nonetheless very empty. Parts of New York were infamous for its crime levels. Psychopathic mutants would thrive in those parts of the city. Naruto had memorized the map to the city already. This trip was to provide some context to the map he had in his head. He had also read several articles on superpowered beings in New York, the most notable being the Avengers. It appeared New York had a slew of villains and heroes, depending on how you define them. He would rather mind his own business. It would do no one any good if he became famous. It was only a matter of time before Oni came after him, and if they did, everyone would die. "Oh look, it's Iron Man!" a couple exclaimed. Naruto looked on with neutrality as Iron Man flew by. He shrugged and continued on his way. That was until he heard a large explosion from the area that Iron Man was flying to. He quickly turned into one of the alleyway and jumped onto the roof of a building. His supernatural eyesight allowed him to see Iron Man dodging missiles. He wanted to see who he was fighting. Naruto ran with his super speed, leaping from building to building, allowing him to reach the scene of the fight in a minute. What he found was intriguing. Iron Man was fighting some guy in a large red mech-like armor. "Give up, Dynamo. Your armor is too old to compete with this particular model." Dynamo spoke with a Russian accent, cocky as ever. Stark. Several rockets were launched towards Iron Man, who responded by doing the same. Another explosion rang throughout the dump yard. Naruto stood on the roof. He wondered why Iron Man had not defeated this guy yet. His question was answered when Dynamo managed to dodge Iron Man blast before grabbing his armor and throwing him into a steel beam. Iron Man had better tech, but Dynamo had better durability and strength. He wondered if he should Iron Man, but considering the sirens he could hear, he decided it was time to withdraw. He grabbed a dagger as he saw Dynamo attempt to clobber Iron Man. The battery system was on the back of the armor. It wasn't easy to target, but Naruto shrugged and decided to give it a go. He threw the dagger with incredible strength and speed. The dagger practically ripped through the back of the armor, allowing it to pierce the battery pack. Dynamo grunted and turned around only to see a youngster on the roof. The young man looked like the generic urban kid wearing a hooded jacket and a tracksuit bottom. However, what made him different was the fact that he gone in a blink of an eye. When Dynamo turned around, he was blasted by a unibeam. Dynamo said, as he stumbled back, "Seems you have new vigilante in town, Iron Man." Iron Man didn't reply, but Dynamo knew the genius billionaire was just as curious as he was. Xavier Mansion. Naruto walked through the foyer of the Xavier Mansion silently. His hand training had made sure that he could be a ghost when he needed to. "How was your journey, Naruto?" Naruto sighed. He should have figured that the professor would have figured out his plan. "It was most fruitful, Professor." He thought back. "Next time you decide to go somewhere, please notify me." "I'll do just that, Professor." Charles thought. And though I can't read your mind, don't think I can't sense your psionic signature. I am sure every telepath in America can sense it." Naruto frowned. That was most worrying. If he was a psionic beacon of sorts, that would mean he wouldn't be able to complete any missions without being sensed by Professor Xavier. A smile adorned his thin lips. It seemed he had a new project to complete: how to avoid being detected by a telepath. Perhaps he should open a blog or something. I apologize for the incredibly long wait. I was busy with university and 2 long eye surgeries that made me incapable of writing for a few months. I will update as regularly as I can. I am also making a new Marvel story for those of you that like the Marvel 616 universe. It will take place a few days after M-Day. Next chapter will be the same except with a few flashbacks. Thank you, and please review. Chapter 3. Touchdown. Touchdown. Blue 22. Hut. Go Bavel. Naruto sighed as he watched the football game. He wasn't really paying attention to what was happening in the game, but was rather looking at a Caucasian redhead. In his eyes, she was the hottest girl he had ever seen. Okay, not the hottest that would be defiantly Electra, but nonetheless she was hot. The redhead had sparkling green eyes and wore a light purple shirt that stopped just above her mid-stomach area, showing her toned stomach. He heard the crowd scream as Duncan won the game and Jean started flashing pictures of the jock. He thought, I have no idea what she sees in him. But then again, despite his abnormally high intellect, he could never understand girls anyway. He could seduce a woman no problem, but relationships, he had no idea how they worked. The professor has observed early on in his training that he could produce powerful illusions that could fool even him. He described him as a full psychic package. He possessed telepathy, telekinesis, limited empathy, and illusion generation. He stated that this was the reason why Naruto was so intelligent and that his mind was more developed and matures than any human. It once again proved that Naruto was not fully human but was something else entirely, and as such Naruto got a score of above 300 in an 1Q test made for superhumanly intelligent people like him or Reed Richards. His negative emotion sensing sparked up as he felt a wave of anger and resentment build up beneath him. He turned to see that Scott had vanished and that Duncan was also missing. He used his super speed to run so fast that the human eye couldn't even detect him. He reached the site where he sensed the negative emotion in less than a blink of an eye. To Naruto's surprise, he saw Duncan holding Toad on a wooden support beam whilst shouting at Scott Summers. Me and my buds are gonna squash this slime ball. So, you and your stupid sunglasses at night can just bail," said Duncan angrily. Naruto raised an eyebrow and decided to intervene. He said, Now boys. Why don't you let the Toad go and hop away?" Quote. Duncan turned his eyes widen as he saw the strongest kid on campus, Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto was extremely tall for a 17-year-old, towering over them. At 6 feet 4 and having an extremely muscular body also helped. Duncan snarled, "Uzumaki, piss off and let us beat this toad." "Oh, please don't make a second mockery out of yourself, Duncan. After all, it was just the first day of school where you had to go to the hospital with a broken wrist and jaw." Naruto mocked the teen in front of him. Duncan dropped the toad and charged at Naruto, allowing said victim to run away. "Well, hop away." This also caused the others two of Duncan's friends to shout out, "Hey! He's getting away." But Scott grabbed Duncan before he reached Naruto and swung him to his friends, causing them to all fall to the ground. The two then got up and ran after the toad whilst Duncan glared at the two in front of him. Big mistake, Summers. Duncan once again ran at Scott, who was ready to defend himself but was interrupted at the last second by Jean's untimely arrival. She said, "Scott, no," causing Naruto and Scott to turn, but since Scott didn't have enhanced reflexes or senses, he couldn't dodge Duncan's rugby tackle, which smashed him into the support beams and caused his glasses to fall. Naruto's body absorbed the optic blast that hit him but forgot about the one caused by the other eye, which hit Duncan and slowly made its way into a propane tank, causing a massive explosion to rock the pitch. Naruto's body acted on instinct and threw Scott's body out of harm's way as a lot of burning wooden pillars fell atop of him. Jean screamed as she saw her best friend getting buried under a pile of burning rubble. Naruto, however, her response came back in the response of a telepathic message. "You know, sometimes you forget that I am basically invulnerable to most types of damage and have an advanced healing factor. Do you not feel pain at all? Hey, not really. Remember had my codename is not called Titan for no reason." "Oh, shut up and get yourself out of there," she said impatiently. "Yes, ma'am." A small bright blue energy flash emanated from the area and the rubble was disintegrated and Naruto came out unharmed. Jean blushed as she saw Naruto's masculine upper body. She could see his well-defined 8-pack exposed for everyone to see. Naruto, just go back to the mansion. I doubt you want your fangirls chasing you again," Jean said, trying to keep the decency not to be embarrassed. Naruto shuddered at thought of his fan club chasing him. It made him wonder what would happen if he was a superhero. "Fine by me, but be sure to give Scott his sunglasses or else we would be dealing with another one of those explosions." He snapped his fingers and he disappeared in a swirl of black fire. She mused, "I'll never get used to how the fire doesn't burn him at all." As she telekinetically summoned Scott's glasses, it wasn't a surprise to her that Naruto and Scott both fancied her, but she preferred Naruto, even she had been Scott's friend for about 5 years whilst only knowing Naruto for 3. However, Naruto was always too busy, either hanging out of the Fantastic Four, as it seemed Naruto and Reed Richards had mutual respect for each other's extreme intelligence, or he was trying to master his powers. She swore that Naruto spent at least 5 hours per day in the danger room, and then there was the fact that he was a former assassin, which meant that he kept lots of things from them, and the worst part was that he was freaking telepathic resistant as well, being a telepath himself, but he hated using that power, so he rarely tried to master it other than being able to talk to them. She actually felt jealous at times. Naruto was so powerful that he could probable why make the FF and the Avengers jealous with his power, but as the professor stated to her, Naruto wasn't fully human and some of his powers came from his father, who was a very powerful alien or something. She moved towards Scott, who was closing his eyes with hand. She gently brushed his hand to the side as she said, "You okay?" She put his ruby quartz sunglasses back on and Scott could see once again. He sighed in relief. "Jean, oh wow, I didn't know." He could see the paramedic examining a Duncan Matthews who seemed to have a concussion. She reassured him, "I know you didn't mean it, Scott, but you'd better split." A few minutes later, a 90s Rolls-Royce parked near the ambulance. The professor peeked outside of his window as he used his telepathy to change the thoughts and suspicions of the police officer. He looked towards Aurora, who driving the extremely old car, and said, "Things are under control, for now. But we better hurry, we have got a train to catch." Aurora simply nodded and drove the car outside of the car park and towards the train station. Morning, Xavier Mansion. Naruto walked out of his room as he rubbed his eyes tiredly. He saw Scott banging on the door to Jean's room. He said, "You could try to keep it down, Scott. I am sure she'll be out in a second or two, after all Jean loves school that much. Scott looked towards Naruto with a curious expression. He asked, what were you up all night doing? Upgrading the Blackbird using some tech I made with Stark and Richards. Said Naruto boastfully. Sweet. I can't wait to try it out. It is pretty good, but don't tell the profe. He will shout at me again for staying awake too late. Scott smirked with the potential blackmail material, but before he could speak Jean exited her room and said, come on, we're late aren't we? She traced a sensual finger on Scott's chin, causing him to smile. She looked at Naruto and said, you gonna drive with us or use your own car? Naruto replied, you guys, I am too tired to even drive a car without crashing. She smiled at him and did the same thing she did with Scott. He thought, damn, she is such a tease. He offered Scott, of course my car is better and could help upgrade your engine if you let me help. Scott exasperated, for the last time Naruto, no, I like my car how it is. Plus not all of us can afford the tech that you acquire. Naruto smirked, I'll lend it to you free of charge. Of course, you are going to have to owe me. Scott snorted and walked ahead of Naruto and Jean. He said, no thanks, I am not going to be in debt to a mercenary. Naruto chuckled and so did Jean. Suit yourself, Scott. Once they reached the end of the stairs, Scott shouted, we're heading out, Professor. The professor replied, just a moment you three. They walked to where Charles was in. Dee saw a hooded robed figure standing next to him. I would like you to meet our latest recruit, this is Kurt Wagner. Naruto greeted the hooded person, hey Kurt. Are you German? I know German. Kurt ho. Weaver backed up as Naruto was about to shake his hand. The professor told, you are among friends Kurt, there is no need to be afraid. The figure took out his hand from his pocket, causing Jean's eyes to widen, and shook Naruto's hand. Naruto responded with a raised eyebrow as he felt the three-fingered blue-furred hand greet his own. He said, you're blue and furry, are you related to Hank or maybe Mystique? The professor said, surprised that Naruto could deduce a thing like that by just seeing Kurt's hand, but nonetheless warned the teen, Naruto, let's not jump to conclusions until we have enough evidence. Anyhow, I was just telling Kurt how I set up this institute for gifted youngster, whose gifts are not always an asset. He continued by gazing hardly at Scott as he questioned, right Scott? Scott spoke for the first time since entering, so you heard about last night. Naruto and Jean moved to the side, not bothering to enter the argument between the teacher and friend. It was difficult not to, it was on all the news channels. Charles explained, it was a bad situation and there was an accident. Scott said with a feeling of guilt. I know Scott, but you must be more careful, and it was only due to my presence that the true cause was not discovered. Charles chastised the teen. Scott finally snapped, come on, Professor. I'm packing a bazooka behind each eyeball. What do you want from me? Control Scott, that you're here to learn, and if Naruto can learn to control his destructive cosmic beams from his eyes that could disintegrate matter itself, then you can learn how to control your optic beams. Charles turned to Kurt and explained to the newcomer, Naruto's and Scott's eyes emit a powerful destructive optic beam, and Naruto over there can control exotic cosmic energies for a variety of effects, including firing an optic beam powerful enough to wipe Manhattan of the map. Scott, however, retorted, well, why don't you just make Naruto your prized student? I mean, he's good at everything, isn't he? Naruto's eyes flashed red as he said calmly, you got a problem with me, Scott? Please, if you do, let's hear it. Scott looked around and saw the disappointed look on Jean's face as well as the professor's. He snorted and left the room, probably heading to school. Naruto turned to Kurt and asked, so Kurt, what special power do you have? The teen took of his hood, showing his blue-furred face and elven features. He disappeared in a puff of smoke and teleported to the other side of the room. Kurt said playfully, maybe, whilst Naruto's sharp nose picked up the whiff of sulfur, causing him to cringe and cough. He said, well, Professor, we should probably head out before Darkholme gets pissed off. Jean quickly said goodbye to Kurt and Charles before running after Naruto. She eventually caught up with him in the garage. He had a frown on his face. He asked Jean, do you think about me the same way as Scott? I mean, I do have telepathy and telekinesis. Jean shook her head. I mean, I do feel a bit jealous about you having so much power, but your life has been an everlasting struggle before. You came to the mansion, so I guess it's just fair that you mastered your powers better than us. Naruto nodded. Thanks. It would be hard to know that my best friend resents me, but hey, I would probably just leave the mansion and become an assassin again. Probably fight Wolverine again, and send him flying into the ocean like I did before. Jean laughed amusedly at what Naruto, you sent Logan into the ocean when you were an assassin. Naruto laughed alongside Jean as he entered his black Nissan GTR. He replied, yes, I was meant to distract him since I was the most powerful of the hand members, but the man would just regenerate and charge at me even when I sent flying though to YS Crapers, so I decided to dump him in the Pacific Ocean. I bet if he sees me again he would probably kill me for doing that. Jean grinned. Even your assassination adventures can be fun. I thought it was just kill, kill, kill and kill some more. Could be, but I was a child, so they tried to train me to become an ultimate assassin weapon sort of thing, and they would have succeeded had it not been for Kagami taking care of me. He said the last bit sadly, and Jean immediately regretted her words. Naruto however stopped her before she could even get the words out of her mouth. It isn't your fault, Jean. Now why don't we test out my upgraded engine, shall we? His words caused Jean to smile, but she gripped as they suddenly zoomed out of the mansion at a very high speed of 120 miles per hour. She screamed at him, I haven't put on my seat belt. Naruto. Naruto shrugged and suggested, then put a force field around yourself or something. Jean at the point felt like telekinetically blasting Naruto out of he car, but remembered that there would be no driver then. Naruto began to reminisce on his drive. He remembered a mission that he had completed a few weeks after he arrived to New York City. Flashback. His stay at the Xavier Institute had proven to be very boring. There was very little to do. The professor had gifted him with Dr. Hank McCoy's abandoned laboratory on the lowest level of the mansion. He had found some fascinating research on mutants and genetics, but that was about it. Hank had been working on a cure for his own ailment, as he called it. Well, Naruto was sure that he would also work his ass off for a cure. If the X-gene had decided to alter his phenotype to make him look like a blue furry humanoid feline. Naruto was busy hacking into the deepest recesses of the government. He had found so much information on military projects, blacklists, bounties and so much more. It appeared that United States had a lot of secret organizations as well as public ones that served to protect the American people. NSA, SHIELD, CIA, DIA and several very obscure initiatives. A small chat box appeared on his uppermost screen. His setup comprised of 6 screens, 2 layers of 3 large screens as well as 2 keyboards. Hello. Naruto wrote. Hello to you too. What do you want? Just wanted to speak to a fellow hacker. I noticed a large amount of information being siphoned through this private server. I can't even track your IP address. Oh, and what do you want to speak about? You managed to gather information from the NSA, CIA and DIA, but I noticed a significant lack of data from SHIELD. I can help you breach their systems if you do a favor for me. Naruto raised an eyebrow. He couldn't exactly access the SHIELD servers because of Tony Stark's powerful security system and the fact that they encrypted their data with some algorithm that he had yet been able to solve. He was almost there, but he had sneaking suspicion that SHIELD had more safeguards than just the 2. I am listening. There is a man, he goes by the name Greer. He is a Russian FSB agent who has ties SHIELD's most infamous agent, Black Widow, also known as Agent Romanov. Widow has been sent to eliminate him and steal an important skeleton key that can provide you with a backdoor into SHIELD's systems. To sweeten the deal, I have intel that he is meant to be meeting Bratva members in New York tomorrow night, and I assume whatever they are dealing that there will be a lot of cash. Naruto was getting very suspicious. His system was working on finding a location on the mysterious hack. But he had thus far been impossible to find. He only knew of one person capable of out-hacking him. It was Reed Richards, but this was new. What should I call you? Call me M, and for the sake of brevity I will call you V. How do you even know whether I am capable of completing any form assassination or espionage? Well, this private server was connected to a previous hit for hire, Kitsune. I assumed you were said person. Shit, he forgot to change it. For all he knew, Oni could be hot on his heels now. I know about your reputation, an FSB agent isn't going to trouble you. I do warn you though. I hear he may have gotten some form enhancement. Anyway, my job is done. See you later V. The chat closed. Naruto appeared to have gotten the attention of a very good hacker. Well, it appeared he had a lot of work to do before tomorrow night. He grabbed the energy drink by his side and gulped it down before crushing it. He accessed the CIA and NSA mainframe. Before searching for Greer, hundreds of files appeared and he sighed. It appeared he had to do quite a bit of homework. Lucky for him, speed reading was always effective for this kind of research. 10 minutes later, Naruto smiled. Gray was an ex-KGB assassin and now an active FSB agent. He was very careful. He used improvised bombings, powerful toxins and poisons to do most of his work. Good H2H combat skills and very good marksman. Naruto assumed that the bullets he used were most likely laced with poison. He then began hacking into the FSB systems and found out that Greer had gone rogue a few months ago, when a mission in Venice went awry. The mission was high priority and apparently, Greer messed up and the Russians decided to burn him. Naruto knew that the likelihood of Greer joining the Bratva was low, so he did. UCED that Greer was using some sort of cover to get access to a lot of cash and use it to go under. He spent the next few hours planting a virus in the system of the JFK airport using one of the CIA's backdoors. He configured the virus to stay dormant but passively scan the faces of everyone that had gone through customs. Hours passed and Naruto had moved on to another project of his. He had been for the past few months building an AI. The code was taking a long time even for his super speed. He wanted the AI to build itself, so it took even longer to provide the AI with learning capabilities. Soon it would be ready and he couldn't wait. He heard a beep from a speaker. It appeared Greer had arrived. Customs didn't know a thing and the FBI hadn't flagged his name yet. Naruto walked to his nearly done AI and said, "Track Greer." Naruto provided it with a face. Accessing live surveillance. Target found. Current location, JFK. Naruto watched as the AI followed Greer out of the airport and by sea, capturing the number plate of the vehicle he had hitched a ride on. It appeared Greer still had a lot of money. He was staying at the plaza. Kind of weird for an undercover spy. Naruto knew that staying in luxurious hotels was a bad idea for any assassin. It was better to stay at a less inconspicuous location, preferably in a rundown area where the police are likely to believe everyone is a suspect. Also, the CCTV activity in these areas were very small. They were frequently vandalized and damaged. There were quite a few in New York. Naruto instructed the AI to keep an eye on Greer before he went off to complete some engineering project and get ready for tomorrow night. Next day, 11 p.m. Naruto stood at a ledge of a building as he watched Greer and the Bratva begin their negotiations. He had bugged the area before both groups had arrived. "Mr. Greer, do you have the skeleton key?" Naruto watched from the corner of his eye as a redhead began to creep into the building. She had entered through the roof. Well, it appeared he would have to take her out first. Naruto sped to the roof and quickly followed the woman. It appeared she too was listening on into the conversation. "Yes, I am tall. That you are willing to pay a large amount for it. 100 million. Make it 500 million and we have a deal. No more than 250, I am afraid. We don't have that amount of money in cash." Black Widow was not having a good day. Greer had been a very old acquaintance of hers, someone that had always been reckless but nonetheless proud to be Russian. A true patriot. That was why he was trying to sell the key to Russians. He could have gotten billions from several cooperations such as Roxxon, but he decided to settle on selling it to Russian people. "We have 150 million on hand now. Take it or leave with your key." "I'll take it." Greer's gruff voice could be heard. "Very good." A smooth silky voice could be heard. It was obviously feminine. Naruto knew that voice. Madam Hydra. Fucking Hydra was here. With incredible speed, he rushed past Romanov, who only felt the slightest breeze. She narrowed her eyes and began sprinting towards the stairs. "Give me the skeleton key, me Greer ND, we will happily provide you with the money. Money first." Naruto watched as Madam Hydra moved bag after bag to the man who was about to toss her the skeleton key. 1 second it was in his hands and the next it was gone. "Sorry to ruin your party." Madam Hydra smiled silkily. Her long luscious green hair flicked as she turned towards the voice. "Good to see you too, Kitsune." Greer was now scared. Who wouldn't be? Kitsune was here, the most notorious assassin in the planet, standing in the same room as him. The Bratva men began to shoot at Naruto, who decided to electrocute them. I believe it's just the three of us. With the blink of an eye, Greer had his neck pierced with one of Naruto's daggers. Now it's just the two of us. Keep it, Madam Hydra said. We already replicated it. I assume you want the money as well. The hand decided to backstab you, huh? You know a position at Hydra is always available for you, Naruto. Kun. Don't call me that. I see you haven't changed. You know I had no hand in the incident that took place in Japan. If I had known, I would have extracted you myself. Naruto let out a bitter chuckle. What, so you could backstab me as well? The green-haired woman let out what seemed to be a hearty chuckle. And risk you take down Hydra, Naruto. You are an asset, and I am afraid once S.H.I.E.L.D. knows you were in New York, it will only be a matter of time other agencies come after you. Naruto smirked. Very few people have seen my face or know my real name. Besides, I am a ghost. She let out another chuckle. That you are. Now you should probably disappear. Black Widow will be here any moment. Right. In a breeze of wind, he was gone. The money, the skeleton key, and any trace of him had disappeared into the wind. Black Widow ran into the log. And found dead men everywhere and Madam Hydra standing in the middle of them. She raised her gauntlet at the woman, who merely smirked. Too late, Widow. The next second, a hail of bullets ripped towards the infamous spy. She dodged to take cover and watched as the head of Hydra strolled casually out of the door. This is Widow, requesting immediate extraction. Hydra is here. Flashback ended. Naruto. His mind snapped back to reality. Jean had been waving her hand in front of his face. Damn, you were really out of it, Naruto. I had to initiate the autopilot feature on this god-forsaken car. Naruto let out of a nervous chuckle as he realized that they had arrived at the school. Meanwhile, with Aurora and Charles were showing Kurt his new room, the young son of Mystique was ecstatic and in awe of the place. He asked Charles, "This bedroom is mine." Charles chuckled as Kurt asked the frequent question that all his teenage students asked. "Yes, Kurt, and that's why your parents sent you to us, because they knew you would be happy." Quote. Kurt sighed as he looked at himself in the mirror. How can I, when I look like this? Charles chose it was this time to show an invention that Naruto and he created. Put this on. Kurt put the watch on and his blue furred skin flickered as he gained the appearance of a normal human. He still, however, had his bluish black hair and a red sleeve shirt under a brown jacket, as well a pair of cargo pants. This is incredible. I'm normal. He looked at the mirror, checking his new self out. Aurora reminded the ecstatic teenager, "Of course you're normal, Kurt, but not because of that watch." Charles agreed and added, "This is but a disguise, Kurt. You are normal and you should be proud of it." Kurt pressed a button on his watch and returned to normal. "I understand, Professor." As he hit the button again, "But nonetheless you rock." Charles chuckled and said, "You should thank Naruto, since he basically made that thing even if it wasn't for you." Remembering that, once upon a time Naruto used that watch to hide his horns, but when he discovered his full psionic capabilities he threw it away. Charles and Aurora then left the room, leaving a stunned Kurt with a box on his bed. Kurt rapidly opened the box and found a blue-red suit with a yellow belt that had a buckle with an X atop of a red background. Charles was in his study reading when the portrait lit up and an alarm started blaring. He rolled over to the wall, which opened, revealing a large computer with a helmet on it. He looked at the screen and saw a red dot in the middle of Bayville High School. He mused, so he's finally stopped hiding. The phone on his wheelchair suddenly rang, which he subsequently answered. "Hello, Scott. I hate it when you do that, Professor. Look, me and Naruto ran into student like us." Charles raised an eyebrow. "You two made up already?" "Not really, I was tagged by the mutant who took my sunglasses and Naruto nearly vaporized him," Scott replied. Charles put on the helmet and said, "His name is Todd Tolansky." The info of said mutant came up on the screen and Charles quickly skimmed over it, refreshing his memory. Scott replied, "You know of him?" Charles explained, "Cerebro just picked him up. He must be using his powers openly now." Scott, however, saw where this was going. "He's not someone I would share a room with. He has the hygiene of a dead pig." Naruto, however, intervened in both of their minds. That would be incorrect, Scott. He has the hygiene of a toad, not a pig. Charles continued despite the intervention and told Scott seriously, we don't turn anyone away, so please give the boy an invitation to our institute. Scott replied, fine, I will do just that, Professor. Charles felt Kurt approach him as Kurt asked, what's that thing, Professor? Charles answered, this is a cerebro. It detects the manifestation of mutants. It's how I found you. Kurt looked at Toad on the screen, so this guy is one of us. Charles, however, answered, that remains to be seen. He said telepathically to Storm, who was in her greenhouse. Storm. Strom spoke after a second as she sent a small cloud of rain across her plants. Yes, Professor. Charles asked, I wonder if you could audition someone for me. Todd in a green costume that had a metal stomach jumped over the fence guarding the institute. He said, hey, piece of cake. Unknown to him, Storm, who was wearing a blue costume with sleeves stopping after her elbows and a blue cape matching her costume. She floated up in the air as Toad hopped towards the mansion. Toad looked up as Storm flew past him and a massive storm cloud appeared above him. He said as rain and lighting came out of the cloud, now that is just freaky. However, he yelped as Storm fired a small bolt of lightning at the Toad, forcing him in sea. As a gust of wind caused him to fly into Kurt whilst screaming. He looked at the blue X-Men and said, whoa, what are you, some kind of ratty plush toy? The two circled each other and Kurt sniffed the air and said, the name's Nightcrawler, and at least I don't reek like unwashed lederhosen. The two then started to brawl it out by jumping on to stuff as Todd tried to catch the teleporting mutant. T-Bit used his tongue to catch Kurt off guard and the two fell towards the ground, but Kurt teleported them to the danger room. Charles said, oh no, Naruto is going to practice in the danger room, it's say. T on Omega and those two are nowhere near Naruto's power level. Quote, Naruto entered the danger room only to see that his run had already been initiated. In front of him were Kurt and Todd trying to dodge high-powered lasers, immensely powerful water jets and torrents of flames, as well several other mechanisms that could probably kill them in a single. He thought, well, I'll be damned, Kurt's doing okay but Todd's going to get killed. Naruto was wearing a black-plated samurai armor with a yellow X imprinted on it. He had the same belt as Kurt on his waist but had several compartments on said belt. He wore a pair of purple combat pants. He wore his Kitsune Oni mask on his face and held his two adamantium katanas in his hand. He sighed as he tossed his two blades in the air before activating his energy form. If he was going to save them, he was going to have to go all out. Kurt screamed as a torrent of flames were fired to his side, but before they burned him to crisp, Naruto drenched it with a water jet. Naruto jumped in the air as fast as he could be, sensing what was going to happen. He came down with a crackling energy ball formed around his left hand before smashing it into the ground, forming his own EMP to shut down the massive cannon on the other side of the room, firing an energy blast towards Todd. He sighed in relief as Jean and Scott blasted their way into the danger room and helped the two mutants from trouble as Naruto dealt with the big guns. Naruto jumped as massive fist crashed down onto the ground, forcing a massive crater. The room then decided to send a powerful toxic gas that could induce hallucination on the group of mutants, but Naruto quickly sent a gust of wind dispersing the toxic cloud. However, this was a distraction as a massive energy beam came from all four corners of the room and they all hit at once. He screamed in pain as he felt his energy form fighting back but failing miserably. He roared as he sent a telekinetic wave that made everything get blasted away, including the four other occupants. Jean looked up and saw Naruto absorbing as much as he could of the energy, but it was also hurting him. She was about to scream when the room suddenly shut down. She turned to see Charles in the control deck that watched over the room. Naruto fell to the ground. His energy form disappeared as he returned to his normal appearance. Jean ran over and hugged Naruto. You had me worried there, Naruto. Naruto chuckled. Hey, it seemed the danger room went all out on me. I never knew energy blasts could hurt me in my energy form. Naruto heard Charles instruct Scott to go after Toad to see if he was okay, whilst keeping an intense eye at Naruto, who simply nodded his head stating that he was okay. Naruto sniffed the air and said, sorry guys, I got an old reunion to deal with. Toad had smashed through the window to run away but was met by a man with black hair and brown eyes. The man wore a pair of jeans and had a cowboy hat as well as a brown coat that went over a black shirt. Logan. 3 metal claws popped out of each Logan's clenched fist as he said, "Going somewhere, bub." Charles quickly told Logan from the window on the 2nd floor, "No, Logan. Let him go." Logan retracted his claws and let Todd go. He then felt a massive punch smash into his face as a speeding Naruto sent a dozen meters back. Naruto grinned. Well, look who we have here." Logan growled and unsheathed his claws, seeing the familiar Oni mask of the legendary kid assassin Kitsune. "Kitsune, what the fuck are you doing here? You cold-blooded murderer." Naruto snorted. "As if you're one to talk, dude. You outclass me by like a few hundred kills. But hey, if you want we can restart that fight again. Perhaps this time I'll dump you in the fucking North Pole where you won't escape." Logan growled and charged but was stopped as Naruto sent a powerful telepathic attack, causing him to fall to the ground screaming in pain. Charles roared at the two and said, "Stop it, Naruto. Let Logan go now." Naruto shrugged. "This isn't over, Logan, not by a long shot." Logan snarled as he slowly got up. "I'll kill you for what you did, Kitsune. You killed my teammate Logan. I simply killed one of your best friends. It's called an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a friend for a friend." His voice turning demonic and distorted at the last part, which made Logan whispers, "The same as his mother, I suppose. A demon in human skin." Unfortunately, Naruto didn't hear what Logan said as he had already disappeared from his place. Logan slowly got up and walked inside as he hot. "Perhaps I should tell the kid about his accursed clan. Nah, he'll probably nor believe me anyway." Logan remembered the event like it was yesterday. The day that Silver Fox had died. Flashback. A year after Akamai's death. Madripoor. Logan and Silver Fox were looking for their target in the criminal-infested area of Madripoor. His name was Roche, a large criminal lord in Madripoor. His empire as vast, and his network spanned across all of Asia. He had recently acquired a rather hefty bounty placed on his head by a rival criminal mastermind. So here the two were busy looking for Roche. Maki. Naruto calmly walked through the streets of Madripoor. The hand had given a rather complicated mission. Infiltrate Rock's organization, acquire his assets, then eliminate the target. He had already managed to infiltrate his organization. It was easy, the hard bit was getting close to the paranoid old man. Roche was not the type to trust anyone blindly. His inner circle devoted a large part of their lives to him, and they were shackled to him. He needed something big to get the man's attention. Fortunately, he had one. It appeared that Roche had a bounty on his head. All he needed to do was stop an assassination attempt. From the corner of his eyes, he noticed 2 foreigners walking through the bazaar. His mind flashed to the man who stabbed Akame. And the man walking through the bazaar. He clenched his teeth, noting that they were the same person. He would watch those two. He heard rumors that Team X had been disbanded, but some had kept in contact. If the rumors were true, then they could be here to kill Roche. The amount of money on his head would allow them to live peacefully for the rest of their lives, or to completely disappear off the radar. His hand itched for the pistol hidden behind his back. He could kill the girl right now. The man, however, had a very powerful healing factor, and Naruto doubted he could kill him, at least without figuring how his healing factor worked and how to stop it. That took time, and he really didn't have that luxury at this given time. He had a mission to complete, money to gain, and some contacts to acquire. Uzumaki. Naruto's eyes dulled as he entered his Kitsune persona. He began to follow his targets using his supernatural senses. Naruto could stay far away and still watch and eavesdrop on their conversation. Days later, Silver Fox had finally succeeded in getting to Roche. He invited the woman to the party that was going in his mansion tonight. It appeared the criminal lord had a thing for outsiders. Logan wouldn't be able to attend, but he had the utmost confidence that she would succeed. She was, after all, a fellow Team X member, and they were trained to be one-man armies. Next day, Logan barged his way into the mansion, killing all the guards. Silver Fox didn't return that night, and his gut was telling him that she had been compromised. He was right. Roche was on a chair in the basement, dead. He had the signs for a man being tortured for intel. He made his way to the back of the large basement and found Silver Fox on the ground. Her kidneys and liver had been ripped out. She had died of blood loss. He growled, "He would kill the person that had killed her." He stroked her hair and planted a kiss on her forehead. Before he could pick her up, he was kicked in the midsection and he flew straight into the wall. Nice to see you too, Wolverine. Kitsune. Logan grounded out. Why did you kill her? Kitsune replied monotonously. Collateral damage. Don't worry, she put a good fight. Wolverine unsheathed his claws and charged at the kid assassin. Naruto dodged the man's slow attacks and kicked him back into the wall. An arc of electricity electrocuted Wolverine. Despite his healing factor, he would remain paralyzed. Naruto walked up to the man who was now laying on the floor and picked him up by the neck. I noticed the interaction between you and your partner. Quite an intriguing relationship that you and her shared, in my opinion. Let this be a warning to you, Wolverine. You took a dear friend of mine from me and I did the same. It's a fair bargain in my eyes. You can hunt me down if you like, but we both know who would win. The feral man watched as the Kitsune began to walk away before several earth spikes impaled his organs. His vision blurred and he fell unconscious. Logan sighed. He hoped for Charles's sake that the kid had changed. If he hadn't, then he would probably kill them all after he was done with them. He knew after that day that Uzumaki Naruto was someone not to be trifled with, and the warning had been clear. Stay away from me and I will not inflict any more pain upon you. What he didn't know was that Silver Fox had given up her life to save Naruto from Wolverine because she was dying. She knew she had been compromised and could have ran, but she stayed and fought the most powerful assassin in the world, knowing full well what would come from the encounter. Bayville High School. Raven Darkholme was angry as she shouted at Todd, who was sitting on a chair in front of her. I can't believe this. She wore a gray business suit and glasses with brown wrapped in a bun. She continued, and I bet Xavier wiped your mind. Todd merely nodded at her question. She screamed, get out. Todd scrambled out the room, causing Raven to yell out in frustration as her body changed to another woman. One that was much more different than the previous one. She had bright blue skin and beautiful red hair that reached her shoulders. She had pale yellow eyes with no pupils and a triangle-shaped hem on her forehead. She wore a white dress with skulls that made up her belt, as well thigh-high white boots and white gloves that didn't cover her fingers but reached her upper arm. The room's sudden L.Y. shook as she heard a male voice that caused her eyes to widen. The voice said, "Don't be so hard on the boy, Mystique. After all, we can't afford to thin our ranks, can we?" Mystique shook her head in fear as metal objects rose in front of her and replied quickly, "No sir, it won't happen again." The voice replied, "Make sure that it doesn't." And all the objects fell and the room changed back to how it was before. Mystique, however, growled, "One day I'll have your head on my foot, Magneto. I will not be made a slave to your whims." She set about formulating a plan that will get rid of her pathetic servitude with Magneto, as she knew just the person who could help her. She brought the surveillance tape from the school's CCTV cameras and an image of Uzumaki Naruto appeared. She smiled wickedly and thought, "Hello Kitsune." The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.